Alright everyone, this evening we're going to soar back in time, all the way to ancient Egypt, and we're going to talk about a very specific, often overlooked, but utterly fascinating aspect of their daily lives. Forget the pyramids for a moment. Set aside the mummies and the mighty Nile. Tonight, we're focusing on the humble pigeon, and how these unassuming birds became the internet of the ancient world. Imagine, if you can, trying to send a message across vast desert landscapes, before telegraphs, before telephones, long before anyone even dreamed of email or texts. You probably won't survive this journey without a newfound respect for these feathered couriers. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing on the banks of the Nile, the golden light of the Egyptian sun warming your skin. The air is alive with the familiar sounds of ancient life. The distant lowing of cattle, the creak of a water wheel, the murmur of voices from the market. But if you listen closely, you might also hear another sound, a soft cooing, or the distinctive flutter of wings overhead. These aren't just any birds. These are the secret weapon of Egyptian communication. For centuries, long before even the Romans perfected their road networks, the Egyptians were already masters of avian mail. They weren't relying on swift runners braving the desert heat, or cumbersome chariots rattling across uneven terrain for every urgent dispatch. Instead, they looked to the sky and to the remarkable instinct of the homing pigeon. This is a mainstream historical fact, though one often overshadowed by the more monumental achievements of Egyptian civilization. The use of carrier pigeons for communication goes back thousands of years, with evidence suggesting their employment in Egypt from at least the early dynasties. Think about it. In a world where travel was arduous and slow, a bird that could fly straight back to its home loft, carrying a tiny message, was nothing short of miraculous. You might be wondering, why pigeons? Why not falcons, or eagles, or something more majestic? Well, that's where the quirky tidbit comes in. Pigeons, specifically homing pigeons, possess an extraordinary innate ability called homing instinct or loft loyalty. It's an almost magical compass that guides them back to their nest, their home, regardless of how far away they've been released. This isn't just a simple desire to return. It's a powerful, almost irresistible drive. They don't just fly aimlessly. They navigate with incredible precision, using a combination of the Earth's magnetic field, the sun's position, landmarks, and even it's like they have an internal GPS system, but without the annoying voice telling you to make a... Historians still argue whether the Egyptians discovered this homing ability purely by observation, or if they had some early, intuitive understanding of the bird's navigational prowess. Did they just notice pigeons always returned? Or did they conduct clever little experiments to prove it? Regardless, once they understood this incredible talent, they harnessed it, transforming these common birds into vital links in their complex administrative and military networks. So, as you stand there, watching a flock of pigeons wheeling gracefully against the vast Egyptian sky, you're not just seeing birds, you're seeing the ancient world's fastest, most reliable, and arguably most adorable mail delivery service in action. The cooing of pigeons still sounds around you, a gentle reminder of their extraordinary role in ancient Egypt. Now, let's zoom in on these remarkable creatures themselves. The humble homing pigeon. What is it about this particular bird that makes it such an exceptional courier? It's not just a bird with a good sense of direction. It's a finely tuned, feathered athlete, perfectly adapted by nature and, eventually, by human selection. For the task of long-distance communication, you might look at a common pigeon in your local park and think, that's a mail carrier. But the homing pigeon, though descended from the same wild rock dove, possesses an almost supernatural ability to find its way home. Their internal compass is truly astounding. They can navigate over hundreds, even thousands of miles of unfamiliar terrain, crossing deserts, rivers, and mountains, and still unerringly return to their loft. It's like they have a built-in GPS that never needs recharging, never loses signal, and never judges your driving. This homing instinct is a mainstream historical fact, well documented and still studied by scientists today. It's believed they use a combination of cues, the Earth's magnetic field, the position of the sun, even olfactory cues, that is, smells, to create a mental map of this. Think of them as tiny, feathered supernavigators, capable of feats of endurance and orientation that would make a seasoned explorer blush. Their physiology is also perfectly suited for the job. They have powerful wing muscles, enabling sustained flight at speeds that could outpace any ancient runner or chariot, especially over long distances in difficult terrain. A pigeon flying at 50 miles per hour is a lot faster than anyone on foot, especially when you factor in heat, sand, and exhaustion. Their bodies are streamlined, built for efficiency in the air, allowing them to cover vast distances without expending excessive energy. And here's a quirky tidbit. Pigeons can also see polarized light, which helps them navigate even on cloudy days when the sun isn't directly visible. It's like having a secret navigation tool no one else can perceive. Imagine trying to lose a homing pigeon. It's almost impossible. You could release it hundreds of miles from its home loft, blindfolded. And once the blindfold is removed, it would still orient itself and head straight for home. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians specifically bred pigeons for enhanced homing ability, or if they simply identified and utilized the best naturally gifted birds available to them. Was it a deliberate, selective breeding program from the earliest dynasties, or a more organic process of trial and error? Regardless, their understanding of the pigeons' innate capabilities was profound. They recognized that these birds were not just food sources or common urban dwellers, but living, breathing communication devices. The very act of trusting such vital information to a bird highlights the incredible faith the Egyptians placed in this natural phenomenon. You watch a pigeon preening itself on a rooftop nearby, its feathers gleaming in the sun. It looks so ordinary, so common. Yet, beneath that unassuming exterior lies a creature of extraordinary purpose and incredible natural talent. It's a living testament to nature's ingenuity, and to the ancient Egyptians' cleverness in recognizing and harnessing that ingenuity. The next time you see a pigeon, you might just look at it with a new sense of wonder, imagining the urgent messages it might once have carried across the vast, timeless desert. The inherent abilities of the homing pigeon are truly remarkable, but even the most gifted bird needs guidance. Now, let's peek into the ancient Egyptian practice of training the feathered flock, a meticulous process that turned raw instinct into a reliable, efficient communication system. You imagine a young Egyptian pigeon master, perhaps a priest or a royal servant, patiently working with a new brood of This wasn't just about throwing a bird into the air and hoping for the best. It was a sophisticated, systematic approach, honed over centuries. The training began almost immediately after the pigeons hatched. Young birds, or squabs, were kept in their home loft, often a specially designed dovecote or tower, where they imprinted on their This is a mainstream historical fact. The concept of where young animals form a strong attachment to their early environment is crucial to pigeon homing. They learned that this specific loft was home, the safe haven they would always return to. Their first flights were short, supervised trips around the loft, helping them to get acquainted with the immediate landscape. Then, as they grew stronger, the distances were gradually increased. A pigeon might first be released just a few yards from its loft, then a mile, then 5, 10, and so on, slowly building up its endurance and navigational confidence. It's like training a human athlete, but with more feathers and significantly less complaining. The trainers would often use visual cues, like flags or specific sounds, to signal the pigeons back to their loft, reinforcing the idea of home. They might even reward the birds with a favorite treat upon their return. Though ancient Egyptian pigeon snacks probably weren't. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some trainers would even attach tiny bells or whistles to the pigeon's legs, not just for tracking, but perhaps to help the birds get used to carrying a light weight, simulating a message capsule. Imagine the sound of hundreds of tiny bells ringing as a flock of pigeons soared overhead. The process was repetitive, disciplined, and demanded immense patience from the trainers. A pigeon might be released from the same location multiple times before being moved to a new, slightly more distant spot. This repetition solidified their memory of the route and their confidence in their homing abilities. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians had formal pigeon academies, or if the training was more of an artisanal skill passed down within families or specific temple communities. Was there a standardized curriculum for pigeon training, or was it a more ad hoc localized practice? Regardless, the results speak for themselves. A highly effective network of avian couriers. The trainers also had to consider the temperament of individual birds. Some pigeons would naturally be faster, more reliable, or more easily spooked than others. Just like people, pigeons have A good trainer learned to identify the star performers, the elite male carriers of the flock, and give them the most critical messages. You can imagine the care taken to keep these birds healthy and strong, knowing that the fate of a battle, or the delivery of a royal decree, could literally rest on their wings. They weren't just birds, they were living, breathing extensions of the state's communication infrastructure. As you observe the meticulous nature of this training, you realize that the Egyptians' ingenuity extended far beyond monumental architecture. It encompassed a deep, practical understanding of the natural world and a remarkable ability to harness its resources for their own complex needs. The soft cooing from the ancient dovecote nearby suddenly sounds less like random bird chatter and more like the quiet, disciplined hum of a well-oiled machine, ready for duty. With their extraordinary homing instincts honed by careful training, the Egyptian pigeons weren't just for casual correspondence. Now, let's turn our attention to their deployment in one of the most critical and dangerous arenas. From basket to battlefield, you see, in an age where information traveled at the speed of a running messenger, having a communication system that could literally fly over obstacles was an unparalleled strategic advantage. Imagine yourself as an Egyptian general, leading your forces far from the capital, perhaps besieging a rebellious city or defending a distant border. You need to send urgent reports back to the pharaoh, or request reinforcements, or relay vital intelligence about enemy movements. Sending a runner is slow and risky. They could be intercepted, killed, or simply delayed by the treacherous terrain. But you have a basket of trained homing pigeons with you, carefully transported to the battlefield. You quickly write a message on a tiny piece of papyrus, perhaps no larger than your thumbnail. Roll it tightly and secure it to the pigeon's leg. This is a mainstream historical fact. The use of carrier pigeons in warfare dates back millennia, with the Egyptians being pioneers in this field. The pigeons would have been transported in special, secure baskets, often kept in the dark to keep them calm and eager to fly once released. When the moment came, you'd release the bird. With a flap of its powerful wings, it would ascend quickly, circle once or twice to get its bearings, and then, with an almost magical determination, shoot off in the direction of its home loft, carrying your vital intelligence. It's a quirky tidbit to think about the sheer audacity of trusting a pigeon with the fate of a battle, or the lives of thousands of soldiers. But that's exactly what happened. Pigeons were invaluable during siege. Besieged cities could release pigeons with messages requesting aid or reporting on their dwindling supplies. Conversely, the besieging army might use them to send updates back to their headquarters, detailing the progress of the siege or the enemy's desperate maneuvers. Imagine the tension, waiting for that tiny speck in the sky to appear, knowing it carried news that could decide victory or defeat. Historians still argue about the extent to which pigeons were integrated into military campaigns versus smaller skirmishes or intelligence gathering. Was there a formal pigeon corps within the Egyptian army, or was it a more ad hoc system managed by specific commanders? Regardless, their utility was clear. They were often the fastest and most secure way to send messages over enemy lines, avoiding ambushes and geographical barriers. You can picture the excitement and relief at the receiving end, the pigeon master waiting anxiously at the loft, spotting the returning bird, and carefully retrieving the precious message. The message, once read, would immediately be rushed to the pharaoh or the relevant commander. The speed and reliability of these feathered couriers could literally turn the tide of a war. These birds weren't just messengers. They were silent, feathered heroes, risking their lives to ensure the flow of information. They braved predators, storms, and the vast, unforgiving desert, all driven by that unwavering homing instinct. As you imagine the dust and chaos of an ancient battlefield, the sudden release of a pigeon, its wings beating a desperate rhythm against the wind, stands out as a powerful symbol. It's a testament to ancient ingenuity, finding a natural solution to a critical problem, and entrusting the fate of an empire to the incredible abilities of a bird. And as the sun dips lower, casting long shadows across the desert, you can almost hear the faint whisper of distant wing beats, carrying the secrets of ancient warfare across the vast, silent sands. From the chaotic dust of the battlefield, our feathered couriers now take us into the gilded halls of power. You see, the reliability of pigeon mail made it indispensable for more than just military communication. It became the backbone of royal mail, winged delivery for pharaohs and high officials. Imagine yourself as a scribe in the royal palace, perhaps in the bustling city of Memphis, or the grand capital of Thebes. The pharaoh needs to issue a decree to a distant governor in the Nile Delta, or receive an urgent report from a mining expedition deep in the desert. Days, even weeks, could be lost, sending a human messenger, during which time crucial decisions might be delayed or opportunities missed. This is where the carefully maintained royal pigeon lofts came into their own. This is a mainstream historical fact. The use of carrier pigeons for administrative and governmental communication was a well-established practice in ancient Egypt, dating back to at least the Old Kingdom. The pharaoh's pigeon masters would have maintained a meticulously organized system, with birds specifically trained to fly between key administrative centers. You can picture an important official dictating a message to a scribe, who would then carefully transcribe it onto the thinnest, lightest piece of papyrus available, perhaps even a sliver of linen or parchment for critical dispatches. The message would be rolled incredibly tightly, sometimes protected by a small, lightweight metal or reed casing, and then delicately attached to the pigeon's leg using a fine thread or ring. It's a quirky tidbit to think of a pharaoh, whose word was law, literally entrusting that law to the delicate leg of a bird. The stakes were incredibly high. These weren't just personal notes. They were directives concerning taxes, trade, justice, and the very governance of the vast Egyptian empire. The speed of pigeon delivery meant that the pharaoh could maintain a much tighter grip on his sprawling dominion, reacting quickly to provincial issues or receiving timely updates on important projects like pyramid construction or temple renovations. Historians still argue about the precise scale of this royal pigeon mail network. Was it a widespread, interconnected system covering the entire empire, or were pigeons mainly used for high-priority dispatches between core administrative hubs? Did every governor have a royal pigeon loft, or only the most strategically important ones? Regardless, its existence points to a sophisticated understanding of logistics and communication. You imagine a pigeon arriving at the royal loft, tired but triumphant, its arrival immediately signaling the receipt of a crucial message. The pigeon master would carefully retrieve the message, and it would be rushed directly to the pharaoh or his chief vizier. The very act of receiving a pigeon message would have been a moment of quiet drama, a direct link to the far-flung corners of the empire. These pigeons weren't just animals. They were extensions of royal authority, flying symbols of the pharaoh's reach. They represented a technological marvel for their time, allowing for a level of rapid information exchange that was truly revolutionary. As you envision these tiny couriers winging their way across the Nile, past colossal temples and fertile fields, you gain a deeper appreciation for the ingenious ways the ancient Egyptians managed their complex society. Their mastery of the air, through these feathered messengers, was as vital to their administration as their mastery of the land and the river. And as the sun begins its slow descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, you can almost see the tiny silhouettes of pigeons carrying the secrets of the pharaohs across the twilight. The very thought of pharaohs entrusting their decrees to a bird highlights the incredible value placed on these feathered couriers. Now, let's consider a crucial aspect of this ancient postal service: message security and secrecy. You see, sending vital information across vast distances, especially in times of war or political intrigue, always carries the risk of interception. The Egyptians were keenly aware of this, and while a pigeon flies fast and high, a determined enemy or spy might still try to interfere. Imagine a tiny scroll of papyrus, perhaps just a few lines of hieroglyphs, carrying intelligence about troop movements or the location of hidden gold. How do you ensure that message reaches its intended recipient, and only them? The first line of defense was the message itself. It had to be concise, lightweight, and incredibly compact. Scribes would write in a minuscule hand, often on thin strips of papyrus, linen, or even sometimes, if it was extremely sensitive, on metallic foil. This miniaturization was essential, as too much weight would hinder the pigeon's flight or simply prevent it from flying at all. This is a mainstream historical fact. The ability to write very small and concisely was a valuable skill for scribes involved in pigeon mail. The message would then be tightly rolled and secured. Sometimes it would be placed inside a tiny, hollow reed tube, or a small, lightweight metal capsule, which would then be attached to the pigeon's leg with a fine, durable thread. This protected the message from the elements, wind, rain, and the general wear and tear of flight. It also made it difficult to tamper with without detection. Here's a quirky tidbit. There are some theories that certain high-security messages might have been written in a form of rudimentary code or simple ciphers, known only to the sender and recipient. This would add another layer of protection, making the message unintelligible, even if it fell into the wrong hands. Imagine the frustration of an enemy spy catching a pigeon, only to find a scroll of seemingly meaningless script. Historians still argue about the prevalence of such security measures. Was coded communication a common practice for all sensitive pigeon messages? Or was it reserved only for the highest levels of military and political intelligence? Was the primary security just the speed and altitude of the pigeon? making it hard to intercept in the first place. You can picture the pigeon masters and scribes meticulously checking the attachment, ensuring it was secure enough to withstand strong winds and the vigorous flapping of wings, but not so tight as to injure the bird. The bird itself was the ultimate security system. Its speed and ability to fly at altitudes beyond the reach of most human interception methods made it remarkably effective. A pigeon flying high above the desert was a difficult target, even for a skilled archer. And should a pigeon fall or be captured, the message being so small and easily swallowed by the bird in an emergency, or destroyed by the captor, meant a quick loss of information rather than capture. The choice of pigeon itself might also have contributed to security. Certain pigeons might have been known only to specific handlers, reducing the risk of a fake pigeon being introduced into the system. The entire process, from writing the message to releasing the bird, was designed to minimize risk and maximize the chances of secure, private delivery. As you consider the cleverness involved in protecting these tiny, vital pieces of information, you'll gain an even greater appreciation for the ancient Egyptians' foresight and ingenuity. They understood that in the ancient world, information was power, and safeguarding that power was paramount. And as the last rays of sunlight stretch across the desert, you could almost see the tiny, carefully guarded messages winging their way through the deepening twilight, carrying the secrets of an empire. The security of messages was paramount, but just as crucial was the infrastructure that housed these feathered messengers. Now, let's explore the often overlooked yet vital part of the pigeon post system, the loft life. Pigeon homes. You see, these birds weren't just wild creatures caught and released. They were carefully managed, domesticated animals, and their home base was everything. Imagine towering structures, often made of mud brick or stone, rising prominently in Egyptian cities, within royal palaces, or near military outposts. They were purpose-built dovecotes, designed specifically for housing, breeding, and training homing pigeons. This is a mainstream historical fact. Ancient Egypt, like many other civilizations, utilized large, often elaborate dovecotes to house their pigeons, not just for messages, but sometimes for food as well. These dovecotes often had a distinctive appearance, with many small entry holes or niches built into the walls, allowing the pigeons easy access while keeping them secure from predators like snakes or larger birds of prey. You can picture the interior, rows upon rows of individual nesting boxes or perches, providing a safe and comfortable space for each pair of birds. The design was functional, yet sometimes quite beautiful, reflecting the importance placed on these birds. Some dovecotes were conical, others rectangular, but all shared the common purpose of being a clear, unmistakable home for the pigeons. It's a quirky tidbit to think that these structures were essentially the ancient world's post offices, or data centers for aerial communication, buzzing with the quiet activity of thousands of birds. The location of these lofts was strategic. Royal lofts would be within the palace grounds, ensuring immediate access for the pharaoh's scribes. Military lofts would be situated within secure fortresses or garrisons. The pigeons imprinted on these specific locations, ensuring their return. Historians still argue about the exact hierarchy of the pigeon loft system. Were there central imperial lofts with satellite provincial ones? Or were they more independent, regional hubs? How many pigeons would a typical royal dovecote house? Regardless, the sheer scale implied by the widespread use of pigeon posts suggests a significant number of birds and well-maintained facilities. You can almost hear the soft cooing and rustling of wings within these dovecotes, the constant, gentle hum of pigeon life. The dovecotes would have been carefully managed by dedicated pigeon masters, the same individuals responsible for training the birds. They would ensure cleanliness, proper ventilation, and protection from the elements, all crucial for maintaining the health and well-being of their valuable feathered flock. The birds needed to be comfortable and secure in their homes, as this reinforced their powerful homing instinct. A pigeon that feels its home is safe and well-maintained is more likely to return there swiftly and reliably. These dovecotes weren't just places for pigeons to sleep. They were integral components of the communication network. Each loft represented a node in the ancient Egyptian information, a crucial destination for messages dispatched from distant lands. As you imagine these towering dovecotes standing against the backdrop of ancient Egyptian cities, you realize that the sophistication of their pigeon post went far beyond simply tying a note to a bird's leg. It involved a complex system of infrastructure, care, and meticulous management, all dedicated to ensuring the swift and secure flow of information across the vast empire. And as the last rays of the sun illuminates the ancient walls, You can almost feel the quiet pulse of life within those historic pigeon homes, each one a testament to the enduring ingenuity of the Egyptians. The pigeon lofts stand as silent witnesses to the structured world of ancient Egyptian communication. But a messenger, however instinct-driven, is only as good as its health and fuel. So, let's delve into the crucial aspects of diet, health, and speed that were essential for optimal pigeon performance. You see, maintaining a reliable flock of carrier pigeons wasn't just about providing a safe home. It required meticulous care, almost like tending to elite athletes. These birds were vital assets, and their well-being directly impacted the efficiency of the entire postal system. Imagine an Egyptian pigeon master carefully inspecting his birds, checking their plumage, their eyes, their general alertness. A healthy pigeon is a fast pigeon, and a fast pigeon is a reliable messenger. Their diet would have been carefully controlled. Pigeons are primarily so their meals would have consisted of various grains readily available in ancient Egypt: barley, wheat, lentils, and perhaps millet. These provided the necessary carbohydrates for energy, crucial for long flights. This is a mainstream historical fact. The cultivation of grains was central to ancient Egyptian agriculture, making these food sources abundant for pigeons. But it wasn't just about quantity, it was about quality and balance. A pigeon master would know that a well-fed bird, but not an overweight one, would perform best. Too much weight, and their flight speed and endurance would suffer. Too little, and they wouldn't have the energy for long distances. It's like trying to get your delivery driver to run a marathon on a diet of only potato chips. It just wouldn't work. Here's a quirky tidbit. Pigeons also need grit in their diet to aid it, as they don't have teeth. So, you can imagine pigeon masters diligently providing trays of fine sand or crushed shells in the dove, essential for keeping their birds' digestive systems in top working order. Beyond diet, maintaining the pigeon's health was paramount. Ancient Egyptians, while lacking modern veterinary science, understood the importance of hygiene and disease prevention. Clean lofts, fresh water, and regular observation would have been key to preventing outbreaks that could cripple a messaging network. A sick pigeon simply couldn't fly, or worse, could spread illness to the entire flock. Historians still argue about the specific remedies or medical practices the Egyptians might have employed for ailing pigeons. Did they have specific herbal treatments? Or was culling sick birds a more common practice to protect the rest of the flock? Regardless, the goal was always to ensure a robust and healthy avian population. Speed was the ultimate performance metric. A pigeon's value was directly tied to how quickly it could deliver its message. Trainers would have observed and tracked the flight times of individual birds, favoring the fastest and most consistent performers for critical dispatches. You can imagine a form of ancient race tracking, perhaps not with clocks, but with keen observation and memory. The very act of being fit and healthy allowed these birds to achieve impressive speeds, outstripping human messengers by a significant margin. Their powerful pectoral muscles, efficient respiratory systems, and incredible stamina allowed for sustained, rapid flight across vast, often challenging, landscapes. As you consider the diligent care and strategic feeding required for these feathered athletes, you realize that the pigeon post was not a casual side project for the Egyptians. It was a serious, underpinning the very stability and communication of their complex society. And as the last golden light of day fades from the ancient Egyptian sky, you can almost hear the soft, rhythmic beating of wings, carrying the whispers of an ancient empire at impressive speed. Despite meticulous care and training, the life of a messenger pigeon was far from pampered. Now, let's confront the formidable challenges of the sky that these feathered couriers faced mid-flight. You see, the ancient Egyptian skies, while appearing vast and open, were fraught with perils, turning every message delivery into a perilous journey. Imagine a pigeon released from a besieged city, its tiny message secured, heading straight for its home loft hundreds of miles away. Its internal compass is true, its wings are strong, but the world below and above is full of dangers. One of the most significant threats was predation. Birds of prey, like falcons, eagles, and hawks, were common in ancient Egypt, just as they are today. A pigeon flying high in the sky, especially one carrying something shiny on its leg, would have been a tempting target for a hungry raptor. This is a mainstream historical fact. Birds of prey have always been a natural threat to pigeons, and ancient texts sometimes allude to this danger. You can almost visualize a swift, silent shadow descending from above, a sudden blur of feathers, and then a missing messenger. It's a brutal reality of nature, but one that constantly threatened the integrity of the pigeon post. Beyond natural predators, the weather itself posed a significant challenge. While Egypt is known for its sunny skies, sudden sandstorms could erupt, reducing visibility to zero and buffeting tiny birds with immense force. Torrential rains, though less common, could also disorient and exhaust a flying pigeon, weighing down its feathers and making flight difficult. Imagine trying to navigate a sandstorm with no instruments, just instinct. It's a quirky tidbit to consider how ancient pigeon masters might have had to develop rudimentary weather forecasting skills, perhaps observing cloud formations or wind patterns to decide if it was safe to send a critical message. They wouldn't want to risk a valuable bird and an even more valuable message in a sudden Historians still argue about the exact rate of loss for messenger pigeons. Was it a significant percentage, or did the bird's natural evasive maneuvers and high-altitude flying generally keep them safe? Were certain routes considered more dangerous due to higher concentrations of predators? You can picture the pigeon master anxiously scanning the horizon for a returning bird, knowing that every delay, every absence, could mean a lost message, a failed mission. The vast, featureless stretches of desert also posed a navigational challenge, especially at night or in poor visibility. While pigeons are remarkable navigators, extreme conditions could disorient even the best of them. Sometimes, pigeons might land to rest, becoming vulnerable to ground predators like jackals or desert foxes, or they might simply become exhausted, forced to land in unfamiliar territory, where they might struggle to find food and water before resuming their journey. The inherent fragility of a small bird carrying a colossal weight of information highlights the trust placed in these creatures. Each flight was a gamble, a race against time and the elements, with the success of communication hanging by a feathered thread. As you envision these tiny, courageous birds battling the elements and evading aerial hunters, you gain an even deeper appreciation for their resilience. They were truly the unsung heroes of ancient communication, their silent struggles in the vast sky ensuring the flow of vital information for an entire empire. And as the last light of day retreats, you can almost hear the soft, determined beat of their wings, fighting against the odds to deliver their precious cargo. The perils of the sky were constant, but despite the dangers, pigeons flourished in Egypt, not just as messengers, but deeply woven into the very fabric of pigeons in Egyptian culture. You see, these birds were more than just communication tools. They held a multifaceted significance, encompassing practical utility, symbolic meaning, and even religious reverence. Imagine walking through an ancient Egyptian city and seeing pigeons everywhere, not just in specialized dovecotes, but cooing on rooftops, fluttering around temples, and even nesting in the eaves of homes. They were an omnipresent part of daily life, their gentle presence a familiar sound and sight. This widespread presence is a mainstream historical fact, with pigeons being a common domesticated animal in ancient Egypt for various purposes. Beyond their role as messengers, pigeons were also a significant food source, particularly for their meat. Their swift breeding cycles made them a reliable and easily managed source of protein, especially useful in a land where large livestock might be less accessible for the common person. You can imagine pigeon stew or roasted pigeon being a fairly common dish, a practical benefit often overlooked when we focus solely on their postal duties. It's a quirky tidbit to think that the same bird carrying a pharaoh's decree might also end up on someone's dinner plate. A real multi-purpose animal, wouldn't you say? But their significance went beyond mere utility. Pigeons, especially the white ones, held symbolic meaning. They were often associated with purity, peace, and innocence. In some contexts, they might have been linked to the soul or the spirit, perhaps symbolizing the journey of the soul after death, ascending to the heavens. You might see depictions of pigeons in tomb paintings or on temple walls, not just as realistic birds, but as symbols with deeper spiritual connotations. Historians still argue about the precise extent of pigeon worship or of their direct association with specific deities. Were they truly revered in a religious sense, or merely held in high esteem due to their beneficial qualities? Did certain gods have particular pigeon associations that have been lost to time? Regardless, their presence in religious iconography suggests more than just a passing interest. Their strong homing instinct itself might have been seen as a mystical quality, a divine connection to their home or origin, mirroring human desires for an afterlife or a spiritual return. They were creatures that effortlessly bridged the gap between the earthly realm and the vast, boundless sky, a realm often associated with the gods. You can picture a priest releasing a flock of pigeons during a religious ceremony, their white wings fluttering against the blue sky, carrying prayers or offerings. Symbolically, this integration into culture, both practical and symbolic, shows a deep appreciation for the bird. They weren't just instruments. They were living parts of the Egyptian worldview. They were observed, understood, and woven into the tapestry of everyday life, from the lowest farmer's meal to the highest priest's ritual. As you reflect on the diverse roles pigeons played, you realize that their history in ancient Egypt is a microcosm of human-animal interaction, a blend of utility, respect, and sometimes a touch of wonder. They were truly the unsung heroes and silent companions of the Nile. And as the last echoes of the day fade, you can almost hear the soft, persistent cooing of pigeons, a timeless sound that has resonated through Egyptian culture for millennia. The cultural significance of pigeons in ancient Egypt is undeniable, but their utility as messengers wasn't confined to the banks of the Nile. Let's explore how this ingenious system spread beyond the Nile. Global spread to other ancient civilizations. You see, good ideas, especially those that offer such a clear strategic advantage, rarely stay contained within their origin point for long. The success of the Egyptian pigeon post was too profound to remain a secret. Imagine travelers, merchants, or even returning prisoners of war, carrying tales of these miraculous flying messengers to distant lands. The concept would have been eagerly adopted by any civilization struggling with the challenges of long communication across vast empires or difficult terrain. This is a mainstream historical fact. The use of carrier pigeons spread from Egypt to other major ancient powers, including the Assyrians, Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, and Romans. Each of these empires faced similar challenges of governance, military command, and trade over large geographical areas. The Greeks, for instance, are famously documented using pigeons to announce the winners of the Olympic Games. Imagine the excitement as the pigeon arrives, carrying the news of a victor, far faster than any runner could deliver it. It's a quirky tidbit to think of the ancient Olympics having a real-time, feathered news feed. The Romans, known for their incredible road networks and sophisticated postal systems, also adopted carrier pigeons, particularly for military purposes. During sieges, they would employ pigeons to send messages back and forth. Much like the Egyptians, their pragmatic minds quickly recognized the value of a communication method that could bypass enemy lines. Historians still argue about the precise routes and mechanisms of this diffusion. Was it primarily through military exchange, where conquering armies observed and adopted the practice, or did it spread more organically through trade routes and diplomatic missions? Perhaps it was a combination of both, with the idea simply being too valuable to ignore once observed. You can picture the meticulous details of pigeon training and loft management being shared, perhaps even skilled pigeon masters being exchanged as gifts, or part of diplomatic agreements between empires. Learning how to breed and train these birds would have been a prized skill, enabling other civilizations to establish their own avian networks. The Persians under Cyrus the Great, whose empire stretched across vast distances, famously utilized a highly organized pigeon post system to keep their sprawling dominion connected. They understood that effective communication was the glue that held such a large empire together. The adoption of pigeon mail demonstrates a universal human drive to overcome geographical barriers and accelerate the flow of information. It highlights how, even in antiquity, different cultures learned from and influenced each other, leading to the widespread adoption of beneficial technologies. As you envision these feathered messengers soaring over the varied landscapes of the ancient world, from the deserts of Mesopotamia to the rugged mountains of Greece and the vast plains of Rome, you realize that the ingenuity born on the banks of the Nile truly left its mark. The Egyptian innovation didn't just serve their own needs. It provided a blueprint for communication across the entire ancient world. And as the evening air cools, you can almost hear the faint echo of wings, carrying messages of triumph, defeat, and daily life across the ancient, interconnected globe. The spread of pigeon post across the ancient world highlights its remarkable effectiveness, but like all technologies, its dominance wasn't eternal. Now, let's explore the reasons behind the decline of the pigeon post, understanding why and when this ancient communication method began to wane. You see, for centuries, the pigeon reigned supreme as the fastest messenger, but advancements in human-powered communication eventually began to catch up and even surpass the feathered flyers. Imagine a bustling Roman road, meticulously engineered and maintained, stretching for hundreds of miles. Along these roads, a sophisticated system of relay stations, known as cursus publicus, imperial messengers, often on horseback, could rapidly transfer dispatches from one rider to the next, maintaining incredible speed over long distances. This is a mainstream historical fact. The Roman Empire's highly organized land-based postal systems were incredibly efficient and a significant factor in the decline of reliance on pigeons for routine, high-volume communication. While a pigeon could fly directly, a well-coordinated relay system on a good road could, for certain types of messages, offer comparable or even superior reliability and capacity, especially when dealing with larger documents. Pigeons were great for short, urgent notes, but not for carrying a scroll of legal texts. The development of more durable and faster ships also played a role for coastal or island communications. A vessel designed for speed, carrying multiple messages and larger cargo, could, in many cases, become more reliable than waiting for a single pigeon, especially if weather conditions were adverse. Here's a quirky tidbit. The rise of specialized human messengers, known as footposts, or mounted couriers, who were trained for endurance and stealth, also contributed. These individuals could carry more complex messages, engage in dialogue, and adapt to unforeseen circumstances in a way a pigeon simply couldn't. For instance, historians still argue whether the decline was a sudden, dramatic shift or a gradual, organic process, where human systems slowly but surely. Was there a specific turning point, or was it a long, slow fade? The cost-benefit analysis also began to shift. Maintaining a large, healthy flock of pigeons, training them, and having dedicated pigeon masters was an ongoing expense. As human infrastructure became more organized and widespread, the relative cost-effectiveness of pigeons for daily, routine communication might have decreased. For military operations, pigeons remained valuable for specific, urgent dispatches that needed to bypass enemy lines or difficult terrain, maintaining a niche utility. But for the everyday flow of information across an empire, particularly one with good roads and stable governance, human couriers often provided a more versatile and scalable solution. The security aspect, while excellent for speed and evasion, also had limitations. A lost pigeon meant a lost message with no immediate way to know what happened or to resend it. With human couriers, there was often a chain of command and redundant systems. As time progressed into the medieval period and beyond, the development of more complex administrative needs and larger volumes of correspondence simply outstripped the capacity of a pigeon-based system. While pigeons would continue to be used occasionally, especially in warfare up to the 20th century, their reign as the primary long-distance communication method began to recede in antiquity. As you reflect on this decline, you realize it wasn't a failure of the pigeon, but rather a testament to human ingenuity, constantly seeking better, more efficient ways to connect across distances. The silent skies, once bustling with feathered messengers, slowly became less crowded as information found new, faster, more versatile pathways on land and sea. And as the last rays of the sun disappear, you can almost hear the faint rustle of papyrus on horseback, whispering the end of an era for our ancient winged couriers. The ancient pigeon post may have faded into the background of history, yet its influence, like a gentle ripple, extends into modern echoes, lasting legacy. You see, the story of these feathered couriers didn't end with the Roman roads. Their remarkable abilities continued to inspire and, in some cases, serve humanity well into recent times. Imagine the early days of modern warfare, long after ancient Egypt, but still before radio or satellites. Pigeons, with their unwavering homing instinct, found renewed purpose. During both World War I and World War II, carrier pigeons were extensively used by armies across the globe. They carried vital messages from the front lines, behind enemy lines, or from besieged units, often when other forms of communication had failed or were too dangerous to use. This is a mainstream historical fact. Military pigeon services played a crucial, often life-saving, role in conflicts well into the 20th century. Pigeons were decorated for bravery, and their stories of delivering critical intelligence under fire are legendary. Think of the famous pigeon Cher Amy from WWI, who, despite being shot and gassed, still delivered a message that saved 194 American soldiers. It's a quirky tidbit that in an age of trenches and machine guns, the ancient technology of a bird could be the most reliable form of communication. Even today, while not used for daily mail, the homing pigeon's legacy lives on in various ways. Pigeon racing, for instance, is a popular sport worldwide, a testament to the enduring fascination with these birds' navigational prowess. Enthusiasts meticulously breed and train pigeons, competing to see whose birds can return home the fastest from increasingly distant locations. It's a direct continuation of the ancient training methods, albeit for sport rather than. Historians still argue about the extent to which modern pigeon breeding for racing genuinely replicates or even surpasses the capabilities of ancient working pigeons. Are today's racing pigeons truly faster or smarter than their ancient counterparts, or just trained under different conditions? Pigeons are also used in scientific research, helping us understand animal navigation, behavior, and even the effects of climate change on migratory patterns. Their unique abilities provide insights into the complex world of animal intelligence and sensory perception. You might even see pigeons used in some parts of the world for specific niche tasks. For instance, in certain remote areas, or for hobbyists, they might still carry small items or messages, a charming nod to their historical role. The very phrase carrier pigeon has entered our lexicon, often used colloquially to refer to any rapid delivery system, or even playfully for someone who relays messages. It's a linguistic echo of their enduring legacy. You can find memorials to brave pigeons in various cities, celebrating their contributions to human endeavors, particularly in wartime. These monuments stand as quiet testaments to the incredible trust and reliance humans placed on these seemingly simple birds. As you consider the trajectory of the pigeon's story, from ancient Egyptian messenger to modern-day athlete and scientific subject, you realize that their humble beginnings on the banks of the Nile truly set the stage for a lasting impact. Their innate abilities, recognized and harnessed by the Egyptians, continue to fascinate and serve, reminding us that sometimes the simplest solutions are the most enduring, and as the last rays of the sun cast long shadows, you can almost hear the soft flutter of wings, a timeless sound that connects the ancient world to our own, reminding us of the lasting legacy of these remarkable birds. The enduring legacy of pigeons in modern times brings us full circle back to the ancient world, and how we continue to uncover the tangible proof of their vital role through archaeological discoveries reveal their story. You see, while the pigeons themselves might have flown away, they left behind physical evidence that allows us to piece together the fascinating history of their use in ancient Egypt. Imagine archaeologists meticulously excavating an ancient Egyptian city, carefully sifting through layers of sand and debris. They might unearth the remains of large, distinctive structures. The very dovecotes we discussed earlier. The architectural design, with its numerous small niches and entry points, is often unmistakable. This is a mainstream historical fact. Archaeological excavations have indeed uncovered the remains of ancient Egyptian providing concrete evidence of their pigeon rearing practices. Finding these structures helps confirm the scale and organization of the ancient pigeon post system. It's like finding the ruins of an ancient post office, giving us a physical connection to their communication network. Beyond the dovecotes themselves, archaeologists might also discover artifacts related to pigeon management. Perhaps small clay feeding bowls, or even tiny leg rings made of bronze or other materials, which would have been used to identify individual birds, or to attach messages. These tiny objects, though seemingly insignificant, offer profound insights into the daily lives of ancient pigeon masters and the practicalities of the system. It's a quirky tidbit to think of archaeologists painstakingly analyzing ancient pigeon droppings, as the composition of guano can tell us about their diet, health, and even the types of grains they were fed. Who knew ancient bird poop could be so informative? Historians still argue about the interpretation of certain archaeological finds. Are some smaller, less elaborate structures truly dovecotes, or simply general bird shelters? Does the density of pigeon remains in certain areas indicate widespread use, or just local popularity for food? The answers often require careful analysis and cross-referencing with textual evidence. While perishable materials like papyrus messages are rare survivors due to Egypt's dry climate, occasionally a fragment of a message, or an impression where a message was attached, might be found in the context associated with a dovecote or a military outpost. These fragments, even if incomplete, offer tantalizing clues about the content and nature of the messages being sent. You might also find depictions of pigeons in tomb paintings, temple reliefs, or on a. These artistic representations provide visual confirmation of the pigeon's presence and significance in daily life, sometimes even showing how messages were attached or how the birds were handled. These archaeological discoveries breathe life into the historical texts and theories about pigeon mail. They provide tangible proof that this sophisticated system was not just a historical theory, but a real, functioning part of ancient Egyptian society. Each unearthed stone, each recovered artifact, helps to fill in the gaps in our understanding, allowing us to reconstruct the intricate details of their communication method. As you envision these dedicated scholars unearthing the silent remnants of ancient pigeon life, you feel a deep connection to the ingenuity of a civilization long past. The ground beneath your feet, seemingly inert, holds countless stories, waiting to be revealed. And as the evening descends, you can almost hear the faint whisper of ancient voices, brought to us by the enduring evidence left behind by these remarkable, feathered messengers. Archaeological discoveries continue to deepen our understanding of ancient Egyptian pigeon posts, bringing their story vividly to life. Now, as our journey through the ancient skies draws to a close, let's allow ourselves to reflect on the enduring wonder of these feathered messengers, the whispers of ancient skies. You've seen how these humble birds, with their remarkable homing instinct, became the indispensable arteries of information for a mighty civilization. From urgent battlefield communiques to crucial royalty, from messages across vast deserts to news of Olympic triumphs across the Mediterranean, pigeons truly shaped the flow of information in the ancient world. Imagine, for a moment, standing on the rooftop of a mud brick house in ancient Thebes, the warm desert wind caressing your face. You look up, and there they are, dozens, perhaps hundreds, of tiny silhouettes against the vast, eternal blue, circling, then heading purposefully towards a distant point on the horizon. Each one a tiny, living packet of information, connecting separated people, maintaining order, and weaving the fabric of an empire. This vision of ancient skies, bustling with feathered couriers, is a powerful reminder of human ingenuity in the face of communication challenges. It's a mainstream historical fact that the reliance on natural phenomena, like animal instinct, for practical purposes, was characteristic of many ancient societies. The Egyptians didn't wait for technology to invent a solution. They observed nature, understood its gifts, and harnessed them with remarkable sophistication. Consider the sheer trust involved. Entrusting a critical message, perhaps the fate of a kingdom, to a tiny bird, relying solely on its innate drive to return home. It's a form of reliance that feels almost poetic in our hyper-connected digital age, where messages traverse continents in milliseconds. There's a quirky tidbit in how this reliance fostered a unique bond between humans and birds. These weren't just tools, they were companions in a shared endeavor, their lives and efforts deeply intertwined with human success and survival. You can imagine pigeon masters feeling a genuine affection, perhaps even a reverence, for their charges. Historians still argue about the philosophical impact of relying on animal intelligence for such vital functions. Did it foster a deeper respect for the natural world? Or was it simply a pragmatic choice? What did it mean to a society to have its most vital communications literally soar above them, guided by instinct alone? The whispers of ancient skies tell us a story not just of pigeons, but of human adaptability. They speak of a time when the world was vast and communication was a struggle, yet ingenuity found a way. They remind us that even the most complex problems can sometimes be solved by recognizing and respecting the simple, elegant solutions provided by the natural world. The legacy of the Egyptian pigeon post is not just in the historical records or the archaeological finds. It's in the enduring fascination we have with these birds, in the sport of pigeon racing, and even in the very phrases we use today that evoke their ancient role. It's a testament to the fact that long before fiber optics and satellites, the sky itself was the ultimate highway, and the humble pigeon, its most steadfast trip. As you drift now, imagine that ancient sky once more, not silent and empty, but alive with the purposeful flutter of wings. Each beat a tiny echo of a message sent, a connection made, a piece of history taking flight.